Hi, my name's Phil Jimenez, and I'm a writer and artist for DC and Marvel Comics, and I've been writing and drawing comics for about 22 years. You know, it's kind of funny. When I was young, I was a big fan of cartoons and action-adventure TV and books and mythology, but I wasn't a big fan of comic books probably until about high school, when a friend of mine who saw that I could draw asked me to copy some pages from an issue of the Uncanny X-Men that he had. And as I started copying the figures and Colossus and Wolverine and Storm, I started reading the stories. And I became entranced, transfixed, and I wanted more. And so I went with him to the local comic book store, where I bought old issues of Teen Titans and Legion and Wonder Woman and X-Men and New Mutants, all of it. What really appealed to me about comics was this idea of sequential narrative, that you could get an entire story in words and pictures in these little panels with these little balloons that contained the dialogue for the characters. This sort of mix of imagery and words and panel-to-panel storytelling blew my mind. So not only did I love it, but I happened to be good at it, and I started copying the comics that I fell in love with. What are the rules to storytelling? So not everyone tells a story the same way, but I think everyone is going for the same thing. You want exciting characters, you want incredible scenarios, you want emotional moments, you want an ending that you just can't believe, a cliffhanger ideally, to get people reading the next issue. When I start writing or drawing a comic, I start from the very basics. How do I want it to begin, and how do I want it to end? What's the first image I want somebody to see, and what's the last image? What are the best stories? The best stories are all around you. Use your life. I'm sure you have tons of stories you want to tell. You just have to think about it a little bit. I think all stories, at the end of the day, are about relationships. They're about relationships between people, they're about relationships between people and objects, and they're about relationships between people and places. I also think stories, the very best stories, tell us something new about our lives. I think they work really well as metaphors, and so I think the best stories strike an emotional chord. I think they make us connect with the readers or the places where the readers are. I think they make us think about the world in kind of a different way, maybe with a new perspective or kind of a fresh outlook. And I think the best stories touch us deeply. How do you get started? You pick up a paper, pick up a pencil, and you just start drawing. So a lot of people that I talk to say, oh, I can't draw a straight line. And I tell them I can't draw a straight line either, I need a ruler. The reason I can do what I do so well, the reason any of my peers can, the reason anyone with a sort of talent or gift can do what they do, most often is because they've been doing it for a really long time. It's practice. And at some point they just started, and they just started doing what they loved. So I'm going to give you a couple of how-to tips. I'm hoping that they're easy enough to understand. But these are some basics that I teach all my students, and I think anyone that wants to draw comics, either for fun or professionally, should know. There is a standard size comic book board, for example. Most comics are drawn on a board that's 11 inches wide by 17 inches tall. And then that artwork is reduced. I find when I used to draw comics, I would draw the actual size of the comic, but that's almost never done. Most of us professionally draw large, and then that artwork is reduced when it's scanned, and it's the reductions that we see in print. Don't overwrite. I find a lot of young writers, including myself, tended to write too much dialogue. They over-explain things. Ideally, the pictures in your comic will do a lot of the telling for you. What's so important about drawing is that it's fun and that it's amazing, and there's nothing quite like starting with nothing, a piece of paper, an empty sheet, and creating something amazing.